Thing is, you want to get all your mistakes out now, early, while you're still learning, while you're a student on smaller, no-risk sets.
I still have nightmares, bro. I'm in a dream and I don't press record.
With directing, when you show up to the set, any of those mistakes also falls on you.
So Valencia gave me all of that in one swoop. Of course, you can't learn everything in school. It's the practical experience, but knowing what the gear is was already a huge step up.
Yeah.
And then knowing what gear to buy was also another step up. Thank you again, Harrison. And then knowing how to use that gear. Because, like, okay, you can buy it, but if you don't have the practice, and, like, you can practice at home and set up and everything, but it will not click until you are on a set, syncing everything, putting time code together, getting the shots in, learning how to boom a scene with movements, communicating with each of the department heads, learning how to lob someone up with some weird fabric or costumes. Like, there's all these facets and different variables that you cannot get outside of a set.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a big production set, but you have to be on a set. And so...
And it's so important too, as like a person that does video or the director, like trusting someone to do the audio. I remember I think it was my second or third film, this guy had best audio equipment ever that I saw at the time. And I was like, oh, this guy could do audio, perfect. Came in, I got him for like, he's gonna be here for like, it was a 4-night shoot. I only hired him for 1 night. Because he came up, he had the boom mic and it looked perfect. And I was like, perfect, man. How's the audio sound? And he says, recorded the whole like night. I get home and I'm like, perfect, time to sync the audio. And then I click the audio files and it's just like whispering.
No.
And I'm like, what? And it's like, it's literally like, I would raise the dBs full as many times as I could, bro. It was like barely like, it barely got to, it got to like negative 64 dB, I think. And I was like, he was like, hey, do you want me to come on any other days? I was like, nah, we're fine. I'm gonna do ADR. We're fine. Like,
so it's a mix, right? Like having the equipment is part of it, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use it.
It's the thing. It's a two-facet thing. Like you need to like, especially like once you do like commercial or paid production, people expect, like you said, people expect you to come up with a rig. But like you said, it's that practical experience that school can give you once you're on set using equipment, and then once you're on set using that equipment. Even with camera stuff, like, oh yeah, my camera can shoot 120 FPS, but if you've never pressed that button or pressed 120 FPS, you can go on set. I remember when I first got the camera, I didn't understand, because DSLRs have shutter speed, not shutter angle. So you have to manually change it. But like I remember the first time I shot on 120, I didn't know I had to be at 240, I thought it automatically did that. So I shot on 120 FPS, but, but it looked awful. Because that's something that you do by doing, instead of like, cool, I have the equipment to do it.
You have to make mistakes. That's a huge thing. Like, okay, so the sound guy fucked up, right? But we're all gonna fuck up at some point. Like, it's unavoidable. So some personal examples of mine. Syncing time code is still weird because like that's an inconsistent thing. All these cameras are different, and it's like it should theoretically just be plug and play synced, but it just doesn't work sometimes. So we'll have to like troubleshoot. But oh man, like. One of the biggest mistakes I've made, I might have to think about this for a second, because like, there was one. Now, thank God, all these mistakes were manageable because they were on smaller sets. Thing is, you want to get all your mistakes out now, early, while you're still learning, while you're a student on smaller, no-risk sets. Because God forbid you do that on a big budget thing.
You get paid $10K to give them no audio. It would be...
And the more like, okay, so it's about who you know, not what you know. Your name is your resume. You know, it's your referral. And if it's a bad name, especially with like top players, you just locked yourself out from a big market of high.
Them and then every person they're gonna talk to.
Exactly.
Every single person.
They're gonna know so many people.
I still have nightmares, bro, of like waking up, like I'm in a dream and I don't press record. I still have nightmares. It's been years and I still have nightmares.
The pressure is real. Like you feel it. When you're there, you're like, okay, please, everything
go right.
Worked.
And you can tell too, like on like Instagram, like there's so many memes I see. It's like when it's like a 30-minute interview and then you press like the focus button, you realize you're recording, and then it has like a guy's face like, oh no. It's scary.
That's what it is with directing. Not taking away from that when I got back to that, but with directing, when you show up to the set, any of those mistakes also falls on you. Mm-hmm. So from the dumbest thing, like the DP just not pressing record to the sound guy just literally not capturing any sound levels that you needed. Right. But like all those things, they do end up falling on you as well. So as the department head, but like literally the director, so you have to like check with everybody from every single department that they're doing their job right. And when you don't know the people beforehand, and you didn't have enough pre-production meetings, or you didn't work with them before, and you just show up to set, and it's happened with me before, you're like, okay, I don't know how this guy works, I don't know how she works, I don't know how are we gonna have any chemistry on set to make sure that we get everything done, and we get it done on budget and on time, right? So it is a bigger responsibility, right? Everyone wants to be the director, but it's also a huge responsibility on it.
The audience that doesn't know anything about film, if anything fucks up, they're only gonna blame on two things. Directing or the acting. Only two things they're gonna focus on.
And the acting is like this with directing. So like if they blame it on the actor and they've seen that actor work good in a different project, it's the director. And then it's what you guys said. One big guy knows about it, everyone else that's big knows about it, it's over. So it's a lot of responsibility. But I want to get back to what you were saying though with the mistake.
So yeah, let's get that out of the way. So the mistake I made was we were shooting this shitty film, right? Super small, whatever. And I like to have a music channel on just for myself whenever just downtime in between setups. And I guess it just didn't occur at the time. Yeah. Some things are so apparent in hindsight. Anyway, so even though I had the ISO track for the music not armed, so it wasn't gonna record, I still had the fader up, which means it's going into the mix.
Oh my god!
So
it's like a cry scene. Why don't you love me?
my mom, she's dying, and we're gonna go to the hospital.
Dude, I'm getting like goosebumps. The editor
sitting
down.
The remix was good.
So.
My boy Marty's here. Marty's just like remixing at that point. He's like, we're good.
Remixing your voice, roll it back.
Hold on, but it recorded to the same?
So here's the thing, like, the damage was mitigated because we have the ISO track. So this is why, ladies and gentlemen, we do redundancy as much as possible. If you ever wonder why we have both mics on people and a boom, it's because if one thing fucks up, we have a safety. And it's not an option at some point anymore.
I want to jump into that later, like explain how the setup works on a set and why would you have those two things. Because some people watching us know that, but some people just don't know like how it even works with sound. Yeah. So I want to jump into that later, but yeah, keep going.
So for sure, redundancy. And I also want to bring up too that you mentioned communication, because that's also like another 50% of the job. But yeah, so redundancy is so important because, like I mentioned, ISO tracks. So you have your mix, which is just everything you've got up together, which is great for it's great for editors to just get quick playback and hear roughly what I have at once. But normally you want to play with the ISO tracks because the more individualism, separate elements you have to work with, it's like working with raw film. Yeah. You have more options to work with and it can come out cleaner. So we were safe because we had a clean boom, we had a clean lav, and we had a music channel you just remove. But on the surface, when you just instantly hit play, you're gonna hear the mix. So you're just gonna hear at once.
I can imagine the director watching the playback like,
what the fuck is it?
It's like when I gave Brooke, I was a cinematographer for a short film, and it was my first time having my camera that has 2 SD cards on it. So I gave the director the log. We didn't have a person to log, like the files. So I was just the one doing DP, and I just like gave her the SD card. And I was like, okay, it's lot number 1, SD card, boom, go home. She calls me, she's like crying. She's like, oh my God, I don't see any footage here. You didn't record it. I'm like, listen, I know I recorded.
It's the next day, like me and him were like at a restaurant drinking, because it's a film festival like the next day. So we're like at a film festival, and the first day was like the most important scene of the whole movie. So we shot all that, and then we get a call. We hear. I looked at Fernando. I was like, I'm DP next time.
Listen, bro, I know there's no way. There's 2, and then I was like, hold on, what could have happened? And I'm like, oh, there's 2 slots in my camera. That's what
I
it
always
is.
do format before I give them the
So then boom, okay, it's here. So it's similar to that.
Very similar.
Yeah.
And so no problem there, right? But a lot of times it's just the way you represent your work to the client.
Yeah.
So even though technically we're safe with the ISO tracks or whatever, and like it was fine because I knew the guy, like we're not friends, but like we're copacetic. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm never gonna work with you again. But had it been any other clients, even though we had the ISO tracks, even though it was saved, it would still look really bad to that client to give them a mix, and that shit happens.
Yeah.
Right. So glad I learned that lesson then.
Exactly.
Not gonna make that mistake now.
Exactly.
And there are several exampls of that where it's like we cut it really close. Here's another example. This is a higher budget thing we're doing now. We're shooting for the NBA, but I can't say more than that. NBA. But
Actually, it was called the NDA.
so we're shooting with them or whatever. We're getting some interviews, and I didn't get the name of our interviewee, so I'm like changing the name during like mid take. I change it, and then the file corrupts. And like I didn't know it because like it's happened before where sound devices, my mixer will just like put little pluses next to the file name, so I just didn't think anything of it until we cut, and I try to hit playback, and it just doesn't play, and it skips to the next take. I'm like, what just happened? So I'm like, this has never happened before, and I've relabeled takes mid take. So why did it happen now? I don't know why it happened. It just did. It was just sometimes you can do all your due diligence and still make a mistake. Like I said, they are right. Like literally, like a pterodactyl.
Yeah.
No one knows how to make a pterodactyl consistently. Those things have a mind of their own, you know. So
what'd you do?
thank God we were sending, again, redundancy. I'm sending a feed to the camera directly. So even though that file got corrupted, we thankfully had a clean audio sent straight to the camera, and they could use that.
That's good.
Thank God. Thank God, because otherwise it's like, what do you tell them? Like, hey, sorry, NBA, we didn't get that one interview with that person. Tough. You know?
And you're like, it was just Michael Jordan. It's like,
Like, one of the worst things you can do is offer... Right, just get them in again. But like, one of the worst things you can do is not have another solution, you know, and sometimes you are SOL.
That is a big no-no when you tell people, like, no one wants to hear problems. You have to be like, if there is a problem, be like, hey, but I solved it. Like, you can't be like, hey, here's a problem. You can just sit back and like do nothing.
having a backup and always like knowing how to communicate, because if you think about it, a big part of it, like you said, is communication.
Yes.
Like even how you communicate to the client.
Yes.
That there were 2 SD slots, not just one. Right. Or in your case, that the mix is here, but you also have separate tracks. Exactly. And don't worry, I will send you those separate tracks.
And I always joke with Fernando and a bunch of other people, like when you're, because we do a lot of like smaller commercial, smaller, you know, stuff where you're catching B-roll. Sometimes when you're in a rush, you don't press record, or you press it slightly, and it doesn't register. And then you go, and then you think you're recording, and then you realize, oh, it wasn't recording. I never tell that to the actor or anybody. I just say, you could do better. And then I press record again, and I capture the footage. Yeah. No one ever knows when I don't record. Like, it's like their vision of like what's going on needs to be the best to its ability, unless it's like no other way around, then I have to be like, all right, we gotta do it again.
There was this time we did a film and he didn't record anything.
Yeah, it was like 4 days straight, and then he just didn't record a single thing.
Overnight shoot
He
goes
didn't
by.
take the lens cap.
Sorry, what?
He didn't take the lens cap.
It was
He
all
record, but
it was all
black.
black, but the sound was really good.
So we actually just made like a audio movie.